Hello, I am KHM, and normally I play games or something else fun and apply the most boring and lazy commentary I can so that a whole 5 people will watch my stuff, for which I suspect are misclicks. However, in this episode I'm going to talk about something neither gamey nor fun, and most of my usual quote target audience unquote probably won't care about. Now, I tend to live under a rock and generally only hear about problems in the world when either a few years have passed or when they affect me directly, like what happened in this instance. I've recently got an email from my internet service provider. Dear KHM, thank you for choosing Cox. We appreciate your business. Your Cox high-speed internet package includes a data plan of 300 gigabytes. As of May 9th, 2014, your household has used 309 gigabytes of usage data in the current billing cycle. Some common factors affecting data usage include the number of internet-connected devices in the household, Wi-Fi network security, the, What? I did not notice that before. Wi-Fi network security affects data usage? Not over the internet. The hell? Okay. Leaving that aside, let's just continue. The amount of streaming video watched, and the presence of viruses and spyware on one or more home computers. First of all, my data plan is unlimited. It has always been unlimited. Well, technically there is a limit, but it's set by the data transfer speeds and how much time there is in a month. Secondly, even if a limit has been added, my going over it shouldn't be the first time I'm hearing about it. And third, a limit doesn't even make sense. I did some looking around and found this seems to be a disturbing trend at the moment. I also found a number of explanations as to why they're doing this, and I would like to go over them with you. Cell phone plans are going up in cost, while they have a data cap that is going down. So why wouldn't the internet do the same? Well, cell phones are, by their very nature, wireless. And while the number of people trying to transmit and receive data are going up, the number of frequencies available are not. This forms a natural bottleneck that phone companies can't get around. With everyone clamoring to use their latest smartphones, the end result is that people have to pay more to receive less. However, Cox high-speed internet is wired, which means this problem does not exist for them. If they find a connection is getting a bit full, they just simply add another one and load balance between them. And this can be done near infinitely. The ISP needs to do this to fight congestion on their networks. This is untrue for 2 reasons. The first is the aforementioned ability of theirs to expand their networks near infinitely to handle data bandwidth needs. The second is that it is standard practice for internet service providers to use something called quality of service, or QoS for short. How QoS works is every packet is given a priority value based on where it came from and where it is going. And as that I have a normal connection, I have the lowest possible priority. Which means that if a higher priority packet needs to be sent, even if mine got there first, mine gets added to the back of the queue and has to wait for a window in which no other data is being transmitted. If there is no such window, then my packet is simply thrown away, and I have to retransmit it again. So basically, I'm only getting the scraps of bandwidth left over after everyone else has had their fill, thereby making it impossible for me to congest their network at all. Also, network congestion within their network is entirely the problem of the internet service provider, and not that of the customer. Otherwise, it would be like the postal service agreeing to deliver a package that you already paid for, but then sending you a bill because their truck was too full. Oh, and they just threw away your package instead of putting it on another truck. Internet service providers are moving to a business model where they charge based on how much you use, like water and electricity. No, they aren't. Let's look at electricity. Now, from my power company, I get what is known as a megawatt hour, which means that I can use up to a megawatt of power per hour. Now, I'm not sure what would actually happen if I used more power than that within 1 hour, as that I have never come close to that cap. But I would imagine that I would either be charged an exorbitant price or be cut off completely, which seems more likely because I'd probably trip a breaker somewhere. However, if I don't hit my cap, I'm only charged for the power that I actually used. What this means is that if I suddenly decide to become Amish and flip the breaker off, I wouldn't be charged anything for the power I didn't use. With the internet, on the other hand, not only are you paying for all the bandwidth of your cap, whether you use it or not, but you're also getting cut off or charged an exorbitant price when you hit it. Also, unlike the power cap that I never get close to, the internet cap is apparently so low that my household hit it under normal and reasonable usage. Basically, all that they have done is find a way to take microtransactions from the gaming world and apply it to their own business model, EA style. Running new connections costs money, and they need to pay for it somehow. While it's true that running cables and buying equipment isn't cheap, when compared to the amount of money they'll be making off it, it's easily justified. For starters, anything that is directly connected to a customer, it's standard practice to make the customer pay for the installation and maintenance of, which means that it costs the internet service provider nothing. However, there are some companies that actually skimp on this part. For example, instead of giving everyone their own dedicated line, Cox actually forces everyone within a neighborhood to share a single cable that connects to them. So in the commercials, when they talk about how amazing the speed they give their customers is, what they don't actually tell you is that this is the total speed of everyone on that cable and not the speed of the individual. Next, the cables and equipment that are actually within the internet service provider, while none of it is cheap by any stretch of the imagination, sometimes costing as much as a new house, is all designed to only need replacing once every 10 to 20 years. And then when you take into account how many users it can handle, and how much each user is paying for internet, a big company like Cox is easily able to quickly make it all back. For example, let's look at an OC3 cable, which can handle about 139.264 megabits per second after overhead. Now let's say the installation and all the equipment for this cost about $50,000. Although it normally would cost around $10,000, but we'll say $50,000, and with a monthly upkeep of another $50,000, which is a bit higher than the actual average, but we'll go with that. Now, if we look at business DSL plans, which give a guaranteed 256 kilobits per second, we can see that this line can handle about 544 accounts simultaneously. However, it is rare for everyone to be online and using their full bandwidth at the same time, so the ISP can safely increase the number of accounts online by about 50% without anyone noticing, which brings us to 816 accounts on the same line. Now, if the ISP charges $70 per account, then we can see they are making about $57,120 per month, and they will have the line completely paid for in about 8 months. Now, I know many of you by this point are saying something along the lines of, but my ISP gives me up to 1.5 megabits per second for only $40 per month. So let's look and address how they can do that. Okay, so our ISP is sitting on this huge data pipe, and even though it's servicing 816 accounts, it is still mostly idle. Now, every moment that ticks by with this connection idle is just money the ISP can smell burning. But they can't just add more accounts, because that would encroach upon the bandwidth they have already guaranteed would be available to their existing customers when they need it. The solution to this problem is the awe, the power, and the mystery that is QoS. With QoS, they can set it so that any data an account sends outside of their guaranteed data transfer rate has a lower priority than they normally would. This allows the ISP to give their customers an up-to speed that is anything that they want in addition to their guaranteed speed, thereby reducing the idle time while increasing the value of the connection to the customer without any additional costs or risk of network congestion. But wait, the connection is still mostly idle, especially during non-business hours. How do we solve this? Again, QoS to the rescue, by allowing them to add even more accounts to this line with a guaranteed transfer rate of 0 bits per second. So they only have an up-to speed. This is typically what is offered to residential areas at a much lower price and is more or less just free money for the ISP, as they can just stick as many of these as they want on the line, without fear of causing congestion. But let's say they care about their non-guaranteed bandwidth users, and only add 816 of them, so that they will usually have a decent speed as well. For $40 per month per account, they are getting an additional $32,640, which brings their total to $89,760 per month, which means they will actually have that line completely paid for within 2 months. Now, as a bit of an interesting side note, you can get an idea of how profitable a company is by how crappy its customer service is. The more money that a company at least thinks it's making, the less it will actually invest in keeping their customers happy, because the less value each individual customer is perceived to have. The cable companies are trying to protect their investment in cable TV from people streaming shows on the internet. Despite the fact that this is the most underhead and bullshit reason I've come across, it's also the only one that actually makes sense. More and more people are turning away from TV and going to sites like Netflix for their TV viewing needs, because it offers a superior service in just about every way. The more people that watch streamed content means the fewer people that actually need cable TV. So to get people to go back to watching TV and buying cable, they take advantage of how large streamed video files are and cap their customers' internet rates in such a way that anyone who regularly watches streamed content will have to pay a lot extra for the privilege. However, I think this is going to hurt their TV cable branch more than help it. The reason why is because I get cable TV from Cox, and I already pay a crap ton more for it than I think I should be. So if they're going to hike the price of internet, then I'm going to have to make up for it somewhere else in my budget to pay for it. And the first thing I think I'd pick would probably be to get rid of cable. As much as I'd miss the science and discovery channels, the internet simply has more to offer in way of shows, all of which are on demand and commercial free. As for how to fight this, I'm afraid the best I could come up with was making this video. I looked into changing my internet service provider, but Cox seems to have a monopoly in my area, which unfortunately is an all too common occurrence. Now, while making this video, I got the bill from Cox, and they don't seem to have charged me for going over the data cap, and while it does calm me down a bit, it doesn't mean they are off the hook. So, once again, I am KHM. Thank you for watching, and if you have anything to add, leave it in the comments below.